Thanks again for joining us this afternoon for our Excel add-in review. We have a release this weekend, May 18th, and the Excel add-in will be available that day for download. And we're going to review the functionality within the Excel add-in and give you a brief intro to how to set things up and what you can do with this new feature. Okay, so our agenda covers getting started. Okay, which will have the overview and some of the technical details of where to get it and how to set that up. Then we'll go over our two major features, which is getting data and updating data, and then we'll have Q&A at the very end. Okay, so what does the Excel add-in do? Okay, it has two major features. One is to get data from Salesnet. Okay, it allows an authenticated user or someone who's put in valid credentials to pull information from Salesnet into Excel. Okay, and we can download data for several different types of records: leads, accounts, contacts, and opportunities. Okay, we also have functionality to update records from Excel into Salesnet. Okay, again, this allows a valid user, or someone who's been granted permission, to update multiple fields of data in multiple records. Okay, also known as a mass update. Okay, we really, for our administrators out there, we really want to, advise you to grant this second piece of functionality, the permissions here, with caution. Okay, because it is a mass updating scenario. And we can update the same types of records that we can pull from, which are leads, accounts, contacts, and opportunities. The Excel add-in that releases this weekend completes our Office suite, which we already have a Word add-in, an Outlook add-in, and now the Excel portion. Okay, so you can also look for the additional webinars on Word and Outlook over the next several weeks, so that we're going to review the entire suite after the rollout of the Excel piece. So what privileges are needed? Okay, the Excel add-in has two major functions, so there are two privileges that go hand in hand. I'm sorry, I'm going to go ahead and pause. Do we have an echo on the line? I've gotten that message from one person, so we have many folks online, so if someone could send that same note to me, that would be greatly appreciated if you're having difficulty understanding me. Okay, great. I think we're okay across the board. I've just gotten several confirmations that other users can hear me. Okay, thank you. So what privileges are needed? We have two major pieces of functionality within the add-in, so there are two privileges that go along with that. Okay, one of them is to grant download and then the ability to get data. Those two go hand in hand with the Excel add-in access option. So when you look at the user profile page, we have access options at the bottom, and this is where you can enable our client-side tools or our peripheral tools like mobile or web services APIs, but you'll see Excel, Outlook, and Word are listed right at the top. So by checking off this box for users, that allows them to download Excel, the Excel add-in from within Salesnet, authenticate with that add-in, and then pull data that they have access to into Excel. Okay, our second permission is the one related to updating data. Okay, so you can grant someone the permission just to pull data without giving them the mass update privilege. Okay, but if you want someone to have this multi-record updating capability, you would check off the update via Excel. Okay, and this is located under multi-record actions on the user profile. So let me pull up our demo account that we're using here and just look at that. So in the setup area under user profile, if we open up an individual's profile, you'll now be able to check off access to Excel add-in, for downloading and getting data, and you'll be able to check off a permission for updating data via Excel. Okay, and they do not have to both be checked, so we can just enable, using the Excel add-in, pulling data by itself, and then we can additionally add the updating portion. Okay, so if I save that, and now we view the permissions, let me go back to my profile. You can see Excel add-in for getting data, downloading, and then getting data is enabled, but the updating portion is not. Okay. So where do we download the Excel add-in? So when the release comes out this weekend, these privileges will not automatically be checked off. Okay, no one will be enabled to use Excel add-in by default. Okay, administrators must go into the system and update user profiles to allow the Excel add-in to be utilized. Okay, once those boxes are checked off, users can go into the setup area, down to client-side tools, and go to the Excel add-in for Salesnet CRM menu item. Now, when they click on that menu item, they'll have links to the download area. So when we click here, this automatically starts the download of the Excel add-in, and they'll have a link for the release notes. Okay, and this will have more detailed screenshots about walking through the different scenarios for getting data and updating data. Again, so I'm going to go back over into Salesnet, and so we enabled Excel add-in for my demo user here, and you'll see under my client-side tools menu, I have an Excel add-in for Salesnet CRM menu item now. Okay, for those of you not familiar with Salesnet, from a setup standpoint, our setup area is located by clicking on the setup widget. If you see as I mouse over here, you'll see setup area highlight. That brings us to this menu on the left, and all the way to the bottom is client-side tools. When I click Excel add-in, now I have some verbiage about the add-in. It's mostly technical in nature. I have my download link available, and then I have a link to the release notes. Okay. Next, we're going to just go over the basics of the installation. Okay. So one requirement, obviously, is that Microsoft Excel must already be on your machine, okay, to use this add-in. Okay, and we just want to point out that the Excel add-in installer is a self-extracting zip file. So once you click on the download link, okay, and choose to run the file, you're going to be walked through a series of kind of wizard interfaces here that ask you to confirm the installer, to unzip it, and then to install it. Okay, so once I click on the download link here, okay, you'll see at the bottom that it wants to pull down the download, and I just want to click Run. Okay, so once you do that, and I need to confirm Run again, this is a new download, you're going to get this first pop-up telling you that it's a zipped file. Okay, and this is what we're walking you through here. So you're going to first confirm it, and then you'll get another confirmation window to unzip it, and then finally an install window. Okay, so several steps to walk through to install, but you're done. This literally takes about 30 seconds. Okay, for my folks online that are not administrators, okay, if your administrator is not attending the session today, you may just need to contact them, on Monday and say, hi, I attended the Excel add-in webinar. You're also going to get a link for the recording and the PowerPoint that we're using today, and ask them to enable this functionality for you. Okay, at that point, you'll be able to walk through the rest of this presentation yourself. You'll be able to do the download and the install from there. Okay, I'm going to cancel that. Okay, so once we're installed, the installer runs, like we said, in like 30 seconds. Now you're ready to launch Excel, okay, and authenticate yourself inside of the Excel application. Okay, the first time that you launch Excel after you've run the Excel add-in installer, okay, you're going to be reminded that you need to provide your Salesnet login via the add-in. Okay, that's how it knows how to communicate from your Excel application to the Salesnet server. Okay, when the Excel add-in is installed, it creates a Salesnet ribbon. Okay, and that's where you'll do all of your setup and all of your, execute all of your functionality and features related to the add-in. Okay, so what we're showing you here in this screenshot is just the header section from Excel. You can see some standard ribbon menu items, and all the way to the right we have a Salesnet ribbon. Okay, when you click on that, we have 3 different sections here, and the first one that you see highlighted is settings. Okay, and so this is where you have to go to put your Salesnet login, and you use your same 3-part login, okay, company, user, and password. Okay, when you put those in, you click Authenticate, and you'll get a message. If everything went okay, it'll tell you that you're authenticated. And down in the permissions section, it tells you, are you allowed to, access or get data? And in this situation, this user is. And then, are you allowed to do record update? And it says, no, you're not. Okay, so that means the second permission was not enabled. Okay, so this is the first thing that you have to do after installing the Excel add-in, is provide it your Salesnet user information. Okay, so let's look at that. Again, I want to stop the install that I kicked off. Okay, I already have Excel open. Okay, and when I first launch into Excel, it lands on the normal home ribbon, and you'll see Salesnet all the way to the right. When I click there, okay, here's my Salesnet ribbon options. When I click settings, you'll see I have my demo, my user information here, and when I click authenticate, it tells me what functionality I have available to me. Okay, and we're going to go over the bottom portion of this screen later in the presentation, but right now we're just focusing on this top piece for validation. Okay, now I want to click Save. And when I do that, well, first let me show you my ribbon items for Get Data and Update Records are both grayed out. As soon as I click Save, you'll notice my Get Data ribbon item is now highlighted, or it's enabled. So I know that I'm able to use this feature. Okay, now getting data with Salesnet. So how does this work? Okay, this is a 3-step wizard, okay, that walks you through selecting what types of records you want to download. How are you going to search for them? You have a couple of different options. And then you get to pick the fields that you want to pull down into into Excel from Salesnet. Okay, it all starts from the Get Data option here. So let's actually walk through pulling some information into Excel. Okay, when I click Get Data, you'll see here I can pick from different types of records, and I'm going to pick companies or accounts. Okay, and you'll notice that it's using my custom terms, okay, that I like. And so I'm just going to click Next. Now I get to pick search for the records that I want to pull into Excel. I can use some search controls at the top. Okay, so I can search maybe across all companies, and let's say starts with the letter A. And when I click search, I get a quick listing of my companies down the left. if I've created reports that I would like to pull from, I can use this section by clicking the Search Using Report Results Radio button, click the Select Report. I'm going to choose from my company reports, and I'm going to pick All Companies by Owner. You can see that's the report that I've chosen, and when I click Search, it gives me all of the results from that report. So I have a number of different options for pulling information, okay, or pulling the records that I want. Okay, so let's actually just pick a handful of these. And I can just choose them and add them over using the arrows. I can take them away. Once I have the list of records that I want to use, I click Next. And now I pick my fields, my third step. And so I'm just going to pick these basic fields at the top here, name and address, ID, website. And I'm going to choose the fields that I want. When I click Finish, these records are going to pull in automatically. And I don't know if you could see how fast that occurred, but it pulled all of this information in. Okay. Now, that's nice. We've pulled data into Excel, but really the key question is, what can we do with data once we have it in our Excel application? We can generate reports and have graphics and pivot tables based off of our information. We can prepare CSV files to be used with updating the record functionality. We can prepare data files to send for integration to other systems. And we can share with people outside of Salesnet. Okay, once we have the data pulled into this Excel world, we can do lots of things with it. Okay, one of the things that we're going to show you, okay, just in our examples, is some information that we've pulled in, okay, and we've generated graphs and pivot tables off of it. Okay, so let me go back to my Excel environment. And earlier, okay, I generated a file called SN Excel Add-in Reporting. Okay, and in this example, I pulled in information that listed the cities and the revenue, okay, from my companies. And what I did was I generated a chart that just gave me kind of a donut or pie graph over the revenue, you know, broken out by my cities. And then I created a pivot table that did the same thing. So it gave me a summary here and a total summary at the bottom. Okay, so let's look at, in this case, we have our information set up here. Okay, but let's get data again, because once we have set up our chart and our pivot table to look at the fields or these columns, we can pull data in from Salesnet at any point in time, okay, and get a refresh on the chart and the pivot table. Okay, so if I get data now, and again, I was using company information, and what I'm going to do is search for any company that has a revenue greater than $0. Okay. Actually, why don't I shorten this up, because what I'm going to show you is the concept of, you know, this data doesn't have to match perfectly. We just need to then update our templates. So I'm just going to pull a handful of records. I'm not pulling all the records that I previously had chosen here. And I wanted name and city, and I wanted my company revenue. Okay, so really what I was concerned with now were the fields at the top. So I want to get rid of these guys, because I'm just doing a new chart here, and I'm going to move my column over here. Okay. So now let's go look at our chart and pivot table. When you have a chart in place, all we have to do is go to the design options for our chart, and we just have to designate the data that we want. So when I go back and highlight city and revenue again, my chart's updated. So as long as I'm pulling in relatively the same fields, I can just quickly go over to my chart, modify the range or the set of fields that the chart looks at, and I can get an updated list. Okay, same thing with a pivot table. Okay, we can refresh our pivot table at any point. Okay, and change, make it look at the data source that we want to use. Okay, and now I have a summary here by city, and then it's giving me a total summary at the bottom. Okay, these are very basic examples of leveraging the data from Salesnet. But again, anytime I want to do a fresh pull, if I'll just pull this information, okay, into the sheet the way I have it laid out here, then I can just go over and refresh my graphic and my pivot table, and I have, new output. Okay, and the pull here again takes literally seconds to complete. Okay. So the next piece that we want to review is to look at updating records within Excel add-in. Okay, what we just looked at was the ability to pull information in, and that is most likely, 80% of the folks that use Excel add-in will be using it to pull data. Okay, so you're either using it to pull data to prep it to go to another system, or you're using it to produce an output. But then some of you may be pulling data into Excel so that you can actually modify some of the fields. Okay, so that you can actually do a mass update of the information back into Salesnet. Okay, and so as we move into this updating records with the Excel add-in, you can see it in red. Caution, administrators, be very cautious with this privilege. It is a very powerful privilege in that you can update multiple fields within any record, and you can update up to 1,000 records at a time. Okay, so we're not just tied into hard coding a single value in these scenarios. If I want to download my list of customers and update their phone numbers and websites, then I can do that within Excel, and I can turn around and push those updates back into Salesnet. Okay, the thing to remember here is that all of these updates that you perform via the Excel add-in, they are irreversible. Okay? They cannot be undone at any point. So the recommended way to proceed is to always save a copy of your original data file in the event that you would like to return to some of those values. Okay. So, updating data with Excel. So what are the steps for updating this? It's also presented to us within a 6-step wizard. Okay, and this screen walks through how you move through the updating scenarios. What I'm going to do is close down my Excel add-in. Okay, and I'm going to just run kind of a split screen here so that you can see. The directions. Okay, so first of all, when I go to my Salesnet ribbon, you'll notice that my update record ribbon is not, my button is not enabled. Okay, so I need to first go into Excel. Okay, my demo user is an administrator. and I need to enable my update via Excel option and save. Okay, so now when I go back into Excel, I just need to re-authenticate. And now you see I have record update available to me. And my update records ribbon or button is available as well. When I click that, this starts the 6-step wizard. Okay, first of all, we need to choose a CSV file. So at this point, this assumes that we've already prepped a file. Okay, however we received that file or generated that file, we need to have a CSV file stored on our hard drive or a drive that you have access to, a network drive, anything that you can reach. Okay, now you may have downloaded data from Salesnet, modified it, and saved the file. Okay, and at that point, when you start the record update or the updating record steps, you'll need to point to that saved file. Okay, so choose existing update file. So I'm going to browse. Okay, and I prepared a file prior to this session, called Companies Modified. Okay, so I'm going to open that file. Okay, and my next screen is a verification screen / choose the update definition that you want to use. Okay, so if you're familiar with importing data into Salesnet, okay, we have import definitions that you can save and use over time. The record update tool works the same way. As you use the record update tool, as you use the Excel add-in to perform record updates, you can save definitions that remember the field mapping and the settings that you used. Okay, so at this point I do want to open my file. Okay, so that you can take a look at it. Okay, so this is the file that I just pulled in, okay, to the update records piece of the Excel add-in. And I played around with the revenue. I have the company ID available to me. I updated all the website information, and I updated the main phone and the USA zip code. Okay, so I did some things that would be kind of obvious, once we run the update. Okay, a key piece of running this update record portion is making sure that you have a field of data that you can match with. Okay, so we have 11 records in this file, okay, but how are we going to tell Salesnet, to update each record, as we submit it from the Excel add-in? It has to be via a unique piece of data. And in this case, I downloaded records from Salesnet, and using the internal Salesnet ID for my account records. Okay, this is how I will tell Salesnet how to make these updates. Okay. So I have the file open. It says there are 11 rows, and now I can choose my update definition. And so I had also created an update definition that contained all of my mapping. At this point, I can either create, a new one, which is going to be brand new mapping, or I can choose the definition and I can start from there. Okay, so when I click Next, the next screen asks me which field are we using for identification. Okay, and in this case, I downloaded straight from Salesnet to generate this update file, so I'm using the company ID, and I'm mapping it to the company ID field in Salesnet. And here's my mapping of my fields. Okay, so let's maybe delete this top company name one. You can see I can take these off. But if I wanted to add mapping, I just click Add, and now I can go through and line up, which things I want to add for mapping. Okay, so I just added company name back in. Okay, so now we're on step 4. Okay, we're mapping our fields. Click Next. And now I can save a new update definition. I can update the definition that I've already selected if I want to, and I can give this update run a description. So this is okay, and then I'm just going to begin updating. So once you're in the update workflow, you don't want to open the sheet again somewhere else. So I'm going to close it, and it gives me feedback on records updated successfully. Okay, so I'm going to click Done. And let's actually go into Salesnet. So I'm using this account, and let's go to our company tab, and I should be sorted by last modified date, and you'll see I have 11 records that were updated at 1:34, and you can see all my strange little phone numbers here, and all of my websites are updated. Okay, and if we open up one of these, okay, you can see my company revenue information. Okay, we can see that it was last updated by Salesnet 02 user. Okay, so we went full circle, okay, with our update functionality. Now, just a brief review on updating definitions or managing definitions within the Excel add-in. So, like we were saying, the update definitions are basically templates, okay, that save field mappings. All right, so if, once a month I update my monthly revenue for a given account or my year-to-date revenue, okay, I can prepare that file according to a definition that I've saved, so I don't have to go through the mapping every time. So as long as I know what my column headers should be, I can fix the file, okay, to fit that format, and I can choose the correct update definition, which should make the updates go faster. A user can save new definitions when they're in the workflow. They can import definitions from the legacy record update tool. So if you'll see here, you can browse to an update definition that came from a prior record update tool, and then you can import those. We can also export our definitions, and this can be useful in saving it sharing it with another user, as well as maybe providing it as a troubleshooting or a support ticket item if you're having any kind of issue with the Excel add-in. And then you can also delete your stored definitions. So if you build a few definitions and no longer need them, don't want them junking up your environment, so to speak, then you can actually delete them out of the Excel add-in system. Okay. And to manage all the definitions, this is the bottom portion of the screen below the permissions that we discussed. You just go to the settings area and you can manage the definitions within this first page. Okay. Again, probably the final reminder or thing we like to stress is please use the update portion of this tool cautiously. Again, it can be very useful in maintaining your data inside of Salesnet. It will provide you lots of flexibility, but we definitely want to provide that to the users that will be maintaining data and have the ability to do mass updates. Okay, so we're going to stop the session now. Thank you for attending today.